What do you think about robot police?
No
way.
Yeah. And the only reason I say that is because who's controlling them?
I don't know. What if it's a decentralized algorithm that we're all aware of?
Nah.
You could be like, show me your code, and it will be like, and you'll see like its orders and everything.
But then you got like, who wrote the code?
And
can it get hacked?
It's not just that.
Can it get hacked?
You got a homeless veteran with no legs, and he's smoking a joint under a bridge with no one around, and the robot drone comes down and goes, violation section 23A, marijuana use in public, you are under arrest. And the guy's like, a regular cop's gonna be like, I don't care about that.
So bad laws, the cop uses his common sense and is like, I'm not gonna prosecute a bad law right now.
Well, I think that it'll work, but it'll get out of control. So you can, the little drone thing. I mean, it just depends. Somebody just shoot the thing out the air, and then now it's a bigger deal. But
you throw a roll of toilet paper at it, it goes down.
Yeah, you throw water at it.
But if it was like a Terminator.
But if it was something that could actually catch people in crimes, and it'll stick around until the cops can get there or whatever. Yeah, I mean, that could work, but then you get more manipulation. You're like, well, how far would this thing go, and what are they going to do in the next 10 years? Are they going to make physical cops that then use force against you? You know what I'm saying? And then they get out of control, and then whoever's controlling them, now they make a law, and they use of force policy for, you can't, a machine won't go to jail. So once it beat the crap out of you, it's nothing's going to happen.
And it's pros and cons. So if you jaywalk, a cop can be like, I don't care if he's jaywalking. Or he can be like, oh, that's jaywalking, you're getting a ticket. Robot every single time will be like, warning, jaywalker spotted, and it's going to stop you.
They could make the robot have discretion. I mean, as smart as AI is today, they can make robots have discretion.
I don't think they could. I physically could, but not legally.
I think
it would be too many lawsuits.
Well, it depends. I mean, honestly, it's walking around with a body camera that's on 24 hours a day and monitoring all of his behaviors. It could prioritize certain things, because in any given intersection, you can have a jaywalker and then somebody speeding. Any given intersection, you have a jaywalker and you have somebody else doing something else more egregious. Or you can have a person who's jaywalking and it's not a threat, or a person who's jaywalking across a green. You're walking across a green light. And so there could be prioritized. I mean, they can do whatever they want to do with these computers, but I think it gets out of control. The government is not our friend. In my personal
So you think it's easier to get corrupt cops under control? They're like buddy and won't turn each other in than it is to keep robots under control?
Yeah, 100%, because most cops don't like these bad cops. Like we had someone in my department, they got fired, but nobody liked them. It was this one guy, and I won't say his name. He used to always push the limit, push the envelope. You're supposed to identify where you go every time you get on the radio. 2 Adam 11-7, that was my call sign. 2 Adam 11-7, I'm checking out here with one at these cross streets. He would not check out and just be doing some rogue stuff. But it wasn't against the law, skirting against policy. But then he does things that lead to other things that ended up getting himself fired, because he started cheating on different things and manipulating numbers. But everybody hated him. He used to ask me to go on calls with him. I'm like, I don't even want to go on a call with you, because you're going to get us in a position where I'm going to have to fight somebody or whatever the case may be. We hated him. Thank God he was off the police department. When he got fired, everybody celebrated. There's officers on the police department that are like that. And I'll tell you one unfortunate thing that you won't hear people say unless they want to be completely honest, is that there are cops that cops don't like, and they are bad cops, but they're not breaking the law.
Right.
There's 2 cops that I can think of right now that if you resist arrest, they're going to work you. They're going to tune you up. And
nickel rides?
Huh? Yeah, nickel rides?
Yeah.
They'll tune you up. And so, is it legal? Yeah. If you throw a punch at a police officer, they can fight you back. But they're going to tune you up. No mercy. If you pull a gun on somebody, or you pull out a knife on somebody, I know God will shoot you and kill you and won't even care about it. Probably will laugh at it after a while. Is that illegal? No. I don't think it's right, but it's not going to get you fired. And those things do occur. So when people say that cops do stuff, excessive force and things, it's like, I can see that happening, but we can work to get we can work to get rid of people on the police department like that. We can work for transparency. I have my likes and dislikes about body-worn cameras, but body-worn cameras overall in totality of circumstances is a good thing. We can do more things like that on the police department and make things better and more transparent. That's fine. But defunding the police, acting like every police shooting is a bad shoot, like, you're never going to get anywhere with that.
Well, let me ask you then. So to the point about robot cops, and another point that needs to be brought up is bad laws in the Constitution. So right now, I mean, I can talk about the rigidity of a robot cop, but the Constitution says shall not be infringed. Cops in New York City don't care. Cops in New Jersey don't care. They don't care what the Constitution says. Didn't you swear an oath to the Constitution? Police do.
Yeah, the Constitution come before any laws.
So then how could you be, in New Jersey, where this one story, a woman was from Philadelphia, legally allowed to own a gun, and she was like mid-40s, and she jumped the bridge, just like drove across the bridge. It's a 5-minute drive. She wanted to go to the casino. She gets pulled over. Cop, without question, arrests her, charged with a felony for gun possession. She has a concealed carry permit from her state. She made a mistake. She was just stupid. Felony charge.
Yeah, you could charge a person with that, but I don't think that's going to go far in court.
It ended up, so for political reasons, this one particular case ended up getting stopped. But look, man, in Chicago, you got a lot of people who are just a dad and a family. And he's like, I know they call this place Chirac, so I'm buying a gun. I don't care what the law says. I have a right to defend myself.
Yeah,
these people get felony charges.
I know. I'm like you on, and we need to fix these things because the Constitution should trump any gun laws.
But it's the cops, man.
It's not the cops. It's the legislators that we elect that create the laws and cause us to enforce it. Because cops don't make the laws. Cops don't even want to enforce these laws. But you have sworn to uphold the Constitution and the laws. So
how do you do both?
So what's constitutionally acceptable, right? The Constitution, we have votes. People vote on legislators, and legislators pass laws. And so when they pass a law, just because you don't like it, or maybe you feel that it's slightly infringing on your constitutional rights, don't mean that the police shouldn't enforce them. Like, for instance, voter laws. Some people believe it's an infringement on the constitutional right that they have to show identification to vote. I don't. I think they should enforce that.
So the difference, I suppose, is you've got, I think, what are they? The 14th, 19th, and the 26th amendments, I think, pertain to, I could be getting the numbers wrong, pertain to voting. And so voting isn't as clearly defined in the Constitution about what you're guaranteed. There are some things where you can't be restricted based on certain characteristics, as the amendments I mentioned, like sex, race, etc. But when it comes to the Second Amendment, the right to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Is it infringing on someone's right to bear arms, telling them they literally can't have a gun in public?
Well, I think yes, but also people vote for those laws. In the state of Arizona, we're a constitutional carry
My
state.
rights aren't up for a vote.
No, it's what I'm saying. But I'm saying, like, we put it in the
That was
totality.
Michael Malice, by the way.
Yeah. We'll put it in the totality of circumstances. We'll say in the state of Arizona, constitutional carry, we don't need permits. We carry everywhere, conceal, whatever, and it doesn't matter. Now, one day, the public, in a democracy, that we claim we live in, people can vote that there can be additive laws to restrict gun possession in certain cases, like convicted felons, different things like that. We arbitrarily vote for laws that thwart our constitutional rights to a certain degree, and we vote for that. And not everybody, because some people don't agree with it, but some people do. Just like,
that's what the Constitution's for, man.
I know. And I think that's why you have case law and you have other things that are brought to the Supreme Court to give guidance on how to float with this. Because I guarantee you, a person who has a concealed carry permit and they cross state lines, prosecuting them is going to be almost impossible. I can't see a person getting prosecuted for a felony charge if they're not malice, if there's no malice in intent.
Nah, bro, it happens.
I know it happens, but it's very rare unless there's culpability there. Like somebody intentionally saying, I'm going to break the law that I know is present in this state. I'm going to cross state lines, break the law, get caught doing something else with this gun, and you give prosecution more.
There was a story about an old lady who was in her 60s, and she was from, I think, like Kentucky, and she had a legal permit for a revolver. She went to visit Chicago to see the sights, and she went to some tourism spot where she informed security, like, oh, before I go in, I just want to let you know I have my concealed carry with me. And they're like, right this way, ma'am. Felony charge. She went to prison. I knew a guy.
Is that the full story, though? I mean, that's the
full story.
That's the full
old
story.
Lady had no idea what was going on, and they put her in prison. Dude, Illinois is crazy, man.
Yeah,
real crazy.
I don't.
There was a dude. There was a dude in Illinois who his family was house sitting for their neighbors, and the local cops knew the neighbors were out of town. This kid was 18. A kid. He's a man now, and he went to the neighbor's house, took one of their beers, and started drinking it. The cops drove by and saw through the window that the kid was drinking beer, and they knew the family was out of town, so they went in and arrested him. And then when it turns out, he said, my family's house sitting for the neighbors. They wanted us to be checking on their house. They were like, did you enter the house? Did you take property? Mandatory minimum. Send him to prison.
Now,
these stories happen, man.
I believe you. I trust you in good faith. I have to read and listen to a court document of some of some judge sentencing somebody, or even a prosecution's argument beyond a reasonable doubt that this person is guilty of
This story was really controversial. Sorry to interrupt, but like
I'm gonna look it up, man, because
there's
it's
mandatory minimum laws, and so the judge's response was, the law is the law. I have to sentence someone who enters the property of another person and takes property. It's burglary. End of story. And apparently, like, the prison was like, they wouldn't, it was like ingestion or whatever. Like, when they were like, we're not going to fill out this paperwork. This is ridiculous. This is insane. That
intake?
We're over. Yeah, intake. They're like, we're overcrowded as it is. And this kid who took a beer, and there was like some big controversy about it.
Yeah, I gotta watch that, man, because I'm like, okay, a kid, and it could, and it totally,
long time ago.
there could stuff goes wrong in the court of law more frequently than people expect, but not as much as people want it to be. But that's very interesting that they would be able to get a person on that and then have a complainant. I mean, you got to have the people who own the house have to be victims of this.
No, the cops witnessed the crime in progress.
And they get
and so the police were the witnesses who said, we witnessed a crime in progress.
Yeah, that's interesting, because police can't necessarily be independent witnesses of a crime. You have to have a victim. You can't just say, oh, a guy stole a beer. How do you know if that person stole the beer or the store let him have the beer? So police have to have, they're independent operators. They cannot prosecute people. You can be a witness to a crime to a certain degree, but you have to have a victim of a crime to a,
Yeah, I'll stress this point too.
Yeah.
These are really old stories from back when I was growing up in Chicago. And as we learned with like George Floyd, you always learn there was something else that they didn't tell you about. But I knew this one guy too. And again, this is someone I knew personally. He may have lied to me. He was from LA. He was driving to the East Coast, and he had guns, legal guns. He drove through Illinois. Huh. Now you got the federal law protecting your right to drive, to move.
Yeah.
Cops didn't care. So he ended up being forced to live in Illinois for like 4 years because of the gun charges.
But I'm wondering so they pulled him over.
So basically,
they pulled him over at some point for something.
So my understanding of what happens is he's driving from LA somewhere on the East Coast, and he gets off the highway to go do something. And that's when they were like, if you were moving and just passing through, you'd been on the highway. By getting off the highway, you're now in state jurisdiction. You're in illegal possession of firearms.
Yeah, I'm not saying it's wrong or right, but these cases, send them to me, man. I would love to review them.
Look, I'll tell you, it's like, maybe I'm biased because I've dealt with some of this stuff.
Yeah.
So I was driving on Lakeshore Drive in Chicago. I'm exiting at Belmont. I'm about 10 miles under the limit because I'm getting off on an exit, and I get pulled over. Cop walks up to me and says, "You were speeding." Fills out a ticket, says, "Sign this." And I was like, wait, I wasn't speeding. I was 10 under. I'm exiting. I'm on the exit. And he's like, "Tell it to a judge. You can sign this or I can arrest you." So I signed the ticket. Like, okay, I guess. I forget about it. I went to visit my sister because my brother-in-law was stationed in Iraq, and she was, suffering from anxiety, just like, and so I'm like, okay, I want to get out of the city. I'll go to Colorado. Once I came back 2 months later, I got pulled over. And the cop walks up, he pulls me over, he walks up to the window and he goes, "Are you Tim Pool?" And I was like, "Yes." And he goes, "Out of the vehicle, you're under arrest for driving on a suspended license." And I was like, "What?" And he was like, "Driving on a suspended license," fills it out. This is where I got I-bonded. He was like, "If someone can come and pick up your vehicle and drive you home, I won't take you to the station, but you have a court date for, what did they say? It was a class A misdemeanor, up to 1 year in jail and a $2,500 fine for driving on a suspended license." When I went to court, and I talked to the prosecutor, and I was just like, "I'm really sorry it happened. I was in Colorado. I was on Fort Yusuf. I think it's not Fort
Carson.
Fort Carson. That's right. I was at Fort Carson visiting my sister. My brother-in-law is in Iraq. And so, but I had just gotten back, and I was literally back from Colorado, a mile from my house. And he went, "Oh, so you confess?" No joke. He's like, "Oh, you confess to driving on a suspended license?" And I was like, "Well, I'm just trying to let you know, like, I didn't get any notification." He's like, "Ignorance of the law is no excuse for breaking it. So if you want to plead guilty, we can talk about what your sentence is going to be." And so then I was like, "Okay, I'll plead guilty." And he was like, "I'll tell you this, we'll give you a $150 fine, court supervision, if you plead guilty right now." And I was like, "Okay." And then when I went up in front of the judge, he said, "How do you plead?" And I said, "Guilty, Your Honor." And he goes, "And, do you state for the record or whatever that you were in no way coerced to make this plea?" And I said, "No, I was coerced, Your Honor." And he went, "Excuse me?" And I was like, I was coerced to plead guilty." So "What are you talking about?" And I was like, "He told me that if I didn't plead guilty, I'd go to jail for a year." And then the judge was like, "Come back in a month and get a lawyer." Every lawyer I got said, it doesn't matter if there was a reasonable reason why you were driving. It doesn't matter if there's a sympathetic reason. It doesn't matter that you didn't actually break the law in the first place. My license got suspended because if you get 2 tickets under the age of 21, they suspend your license for 3 months. I wasn't speeding. The cop gave me a bunk ticket anyway. I had no means to fight that ticket because I was I think I was like 19 or something. I was 19. I had no way to fight it. So I was just like, I don't know. And then I forgot about it. And then after a certain amount of time, it went into, I forgot what they call it, where it becomes a guilty plea if you don't respond. And I had no idea. I had no way to pay for a $75 ticket. And I didn't know that as soon as you pay for it, you're pleading guilty. Otherwise, I would have contested it. So I'm gone for 2 months. Right before I get a chance to go home, before I got any mail, knew anything was happening, they said, you broke the law by driving. Then they threatened me with a year in jail. That's kind of stuff
So you were guilty. I mean,
exactly.
You got to say you were guilty. You were at fault. You were wrong. Now there's a great there's
now hold on a second. Yeah. I was legally guilty, but I did nothing wrong.
So, but I'll say this, and I agree with you. But at the same time, this is why I want to empower young people to know how to fight these things when they feel like they've been done wrong. Because if you were not speeding, you have a right to fight that. You don't need a lawyer. I
got illegally pulled over, and I only learned that after the fact.
And you don't need a lawyer. All you got to do is go to court, and the state has the burden, or it's not necessarily the same as a criminal charge, but the preponderance of evidence is going to be on them. They have to show preponderance of evidence to cite you on a citation like that. So you should go to court and say, I was not speeding. I was on the off ramp. This is what I was doing. The officer pulled me over, but it's also things you can ask a police officer that if he doesn't say, he screws himself. Like, how did he track your speed? Was he doing a radar? Was he pacing you, or was he somehow doing a visual estimate?
Well, so in this instance, after I think it was like 3 months, there was a deadline to pay the ticket, and my sister paid it for me, and that was a guilty plea. It didn't matter at that point. And I didn't know about the suspension law. Yeah. They said ignorance was no excuse for breaking it. But I also didn't realize that by saying, okay, I'll give you the money you've asked for, I was effectively going to be committing a crime by trying to go home. But here's the thing I realized after the fact. When I was back, this was in Glen Ellen, Illinois. When I was back, it was like late at night, it was like midnight or 2 a.m. The cop who pulled me over illegally. What he did was he ran my plates, saw my name registered to the car, saw that my name was associated with a suspended license, and that was his grounds for pulling someone over. But that's actually not a legal stop, because what if someone else was driving the car? He didn't have justification for stopping the car in the first place.
Right. That could be true. That could be true, depending on the state, and also depending on what he can articulate. Right. If he see your driver's license, they have a picture of MBD driver's license, and the person in the vehicle look like you, it's very similar to you, similar characteristics, he can conduct an investigative stop, meaning that he has reason to believe that you are Tim Pool driving. He see you. He believed that you're the same person that matched the driver's license. Some states prohibit this, but some states allow it as an investigative stop. He can pull you over and you've confessed, I am Tim Pool. Okay, yeah. Well, my investigative stop was that I thought it was you. You agreed that it was you, and now you're driving on suspended license. I found that to be true.
This is the problem. My understanding after the fact was that he needed a legitimate reason, because like I ended up talking to lawyers or whatever, that you can't just assume somebody is driving a car, because there's a lot of people who could look like a lot of people. And, I guess Chicagoland area has issues with this kind of stuff. But ultimately, my complaint is, look, I get it. Yeah, I broke the law. That's a fact. Yeah. But we can't have the rigidity. The system can't be this rigid where it punishes young people for silly things like this. And to have like some 40-year-old guy look me in the eye and say, I'm going to put you in jail for 1 year unless you do what you're told. And I'm like, bro, like, is there no consideration for the humanity in any of these circumstances?
Yeah, I think
the answer is no.
I think it's the empowerment of the people, right? It's our fault to a certain degree that if we don't know the laws. It's our fault that if we don't know, because to be honest, we can all look this up. If a cop, this is why I think it's important to empower people to know this, because some people don't know they can do this. You can look up these laws and read them yourself. If you go and get pulled over by a police officer and you say, well, what are my charges? And they give you a charge, they write them down. You can go and Google in the state law or whatever, or municipality, you can Google the law and read the statute. And it says very clearly, this statute has to be met. And if they don't, you're like, okay, I can defend myself in court. Your Honor, according to this statute, subsection so-and-so, this and this, I was not committing this. He pulled me over illegally. the state has to the preponderance of evidence to prove. He has to prove more than 51% of the evidence that no, he was right.
In this instance, the problem I have is at no point are you informed by anyone that if you get 2 moving violations under the age of 21, they suspend your license.
They should inform you when you're getting your driver's license.
They don't. You should
because then you have to go through and look at the laws, the driving laws. You should review them, and hopefully on your driver's license, you confirm that you have reviewed and understood the laws that are on the books. By admitting to or accepting a driver's license, you are accepting the responsibility that you are aware of all the driving laws, and you maintain a concurrent knowledge or a ongoing knowledge of the laws. And if you don't, we need to be empowered, because if we're not empowered, then we believe that it's an excuse to not know the laws. And the judge is like, I don't care. Like, why don't you look it up? I don't have to babysit you and let you know. You should look it up and know the laws yourself, or you can hire a lawyer, or you can, so it's definitely difficult, but we need to be empowered and take our position back of saying, I don't have to default to a lawyer if I just read the statute, unless it's complicated.
I think the system itself needs to default more to a libertarian stance of, all right, we understand what happened in this regard. Don't do it again.
Most of the time it's like that. I would get furious at judges because they give people too many passes. Now I'm talking about a traffic ticket. That's whack. We would go to the court and people would lose those tickets and they just pay a fine and it's fine. Or sometimes they win. They go, I find that there's not a preponderance of evidence or whatever by the state. You're not guilty or whatever. Not responsible. Not guilty is a criminal charge. But when I would go to court, you talking about going to court, they would let people off all the time. I had a guy, I arrested him 4 times, black kid. I arrested him 4 times in a matter of like a week. One was a felony charge of 4 felony crimes, trafficking stolen property, and a whole bunch of other stuff. I had a 20-minute conversation with him, a coming to Jesus conversation with him. He goes to jail. I'm thinking that he's going to at least stay in there for a night. The next day, we get a call for service of a person pulling on doorknobs. He's trying to get into vacant houses. I recognize him. I say, hey, man, and I'm just going to talk to him. He gets spooked. He runs. He almost dies running in the middle of the street. He goes on a chase. I had to chase him down. We ran through somebody's house, through the house, jumped backyards. He had all kinds of felony crimes he could have been charged with. And it's another story of why the lady didn't prosecute. And this is the dumbest thing ever. And I have to mention it, but I'll go past that. Long story short, 5 misdemeanor crimes that he committed that day, which is after he committed felony crimes. He goes to court again. Like 2 or 3 days later, I catch him at in somebody's vacant house. I didn't know it was him. It was a bunch of kids. I go and I recognize him. See him in there, run his name. He has a domestic violence warrant out for his arrest because he beat up his aunt and then knocked their windows out of their house. So now I've arrested him 3 times for felony charges, violent charges. He's fleeing the police. And I think it was 2 weeks later or a month later, I saw him out of jail at a bus stop. It's like, how on God's green earth do you commit that many crimes and some of them are violent, domestic violence, and you don't even do a week in jail? I mean, maybe a month in jail.
Problem goes both ways, man. That's it. Some people are given a free pass and some people are given the book. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I think that more people get passes than the book. People just don't think so. Give you an example. My family member, 70 years in prison. How did he get 70 years in prison? He shot 2-3 people, and he was in possession of illegal drugs because I had looked up his charges, and he was a prohibited possessor. He was already a convicted felon, so he shouldn't have had a gun. He shot 3 people, and he was possession of a dangerous substance. They gave him 70 years. How many years do you think he did, or he's going to do?
20.
Just guess. How many say? 20?
15.
15. They're gonna give him 15. He'd be out on parole.
Oh, I got it.
Yeah, 15. 15 years he'd be out on parole, which is a good
It's like
thing.
Price is Right, like getting close to the number without going
but
over.
70 versus 15. Think about the people he shot. They probably like, I hope he go to hell.
I don't like the idea that we just say like lock him away for a long time. I think the idea is like we gotta help this person. You know what I mean? Like
I think so too. Maybe not if you're dealing with kids. You probably should go to prison for the rest of your life, or you have legitimately raped a woman with force. You should go to jail until she feels comfortable with you being out of jail. That's what I think.
Different crimes. Some crimes, lock them up, throw away the key.
I support execution. I'm just afraid of executing the wrong people. But
Yeah,
same with
exactly.
throwing the wrong people away for a lifetime.
Right, too. But, like you said, some people get the bad end of the stick. Some people, they had appeals. They were guilty.
Yeah.
They had opportunities at fair trial. They lost. Now it's over.
Look, for all the problems, a lot of people don't realize we got a pretty good system.
Well, the
Yes,
problem,
I mean,
the big
name a
problem
better
is
one. Name a
read-
better one.
Every human
Norway, I
should read
guess.
every law. Like the flaw in the system that I'm getting is every human should read every law and understand every law, federal and state and local. And then tomorrow, make sure you reread everything, or at least acknowledge all the changes made to every law, so you know every law at every moment. And if you don't, that's a problem.
Bro.
Even the people that sign the laws into law in Congress don't read the bill sometimes before they sign it,
Most of the
or
time.
vote on it.
See,
That's a huge flaw in the system that we're going to need to address.
But I don't think you have to know all the laws, just like you don't have to know all the real estate laws or whatever the case may be, because then you have access to counsel. So people who are experts in it, you just need to know the functional laws. Like, maybe if you're going to speed, just know the speeding laws.
Yeah.
You know, if you're going to be operating a motor vehicle and, you know, whatever, you need to know how to function the vehicle, know the turns, know like basic laws. If you're going to be murdering people, then you need to know the murder laws. But if you're not murdering nobody, you don't need to know laws around murder,
yeah.
or laws around aggravated assault or domestic violence, or if you're not going to be doing those things. But you can always read these laws and be informed as things pop up. I think it's invaluable for people to watch these cases that go on in the court of law. I used to watch court TV all the time, even when I was a cop, because you learn a lot. Like the George Floyd trial, people should be watching it, not only to pick a side, but to learn how the court system works. So when you mess around and be in court, hopefully not for murder, but when you go to court, you will understand the value of defense and the value of functionality.
Thanks for checking out this clip from the Timcast IRL podcast. If you want to see the full show, come back to this channel, youtube.com/TimcastIRL, Monday through Friday at 8 p.m., where you can leave comments and super chat, and we actually will read your comments on the show. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and if you want exclusive members-only content, segments you can't get anywhere else, go to timcast.com, become a member, and we even have full bonus episodes. Thanks for hanging out, and we'll see you all next time.